Chapter 7. I do not remember the events of that night at the beachside resort in full. Unfocused attempts to recall the events leave me in a fever haze, as if my mind was keeping me from the truth. I remember the silver-haired visitor entering my room at night and pushing me down, but after that is blank. When I awoke, I was clearly in disarray, whether from the efforts of the intruder or the restless night that followed due to the thing's presence in the room. If I managed to keep myself out of its clutches long enough to avoid the nightmarish combination of species that the thing seemed to be after, I could not say, and its behavior over the following day would offer little indication. As for the thing itself, it was tied and bound in the corner of the room, struggling to be freed, though I have no recollection of putting it in such a state. In any case, to escape that situation with some semblance of sanity intact was nothing short of miraculous. Later at breakfast my companion made little secret of where it had spent the night. I had hoped to garner what had happened after its entrance into my room, but as to be expected from this thing by now, discerning truth and subtle mockery from its antics proved to be difficult. Our classmates were clearly unsettled as the thing jerked of the results of the night visit, though I detected its usual sarcastic tone and decided its horrendous claims to be false. I had hoped that my mother would prove to be a valuable asset to my well-being on this trip, but at this morning breakfast that hope was erased. Though previously my mother's return had eased some of the effects these things had by mere presence, that relief had been weakening rapidly, and with one bold statement crumbled entirely. Though my mother had previously showed concern over the relationship the silver-haired alien sought, during this conversation she retracted the statement and said she found it fine for the two of us to engage in a normal relationship or further. Surely these were the most terrifying words I had ever heard from my mother. From this point on I noted a difference of behavior from the crawling chaos. I have recounted time and time again how I felt its behavior to be a mockery, subtle remarks, often in jests, that always had an air of superiority around them. It claimed to have romantic interests, though I never dared to take them seriously and thought them to be a humorous byproduct of the thing's goal to combine species. After that morning conversation, however, I felt the thing's approaches to be more aggressive, more pointed, and more serious. It playfully followed me around the beach that day, hanging on to me all the while, with no regard for our classmates or anyone else on the beach. To an unknowing observer, I can only imagine how normal the scene must have been. For me, however, there is no way I could respond with anything but disgust, as well as taking further interest in me. The thing seemed to lower its guard more than ever before, and now I could see deeper into the evil intent the malignant deity had. Truly maddening look sometimes covering its face that it surely must allowed me to have seen. I had done my best to put up with the thing's constant stalking on the beach as best I could, but later in the day I felt sufficiently drained to attempt to evade the thing. Seeking a place to take refuge, I found a small beach house, seemingly a shop with an open room on the side. Inside the room was a television and a game system, and planted in front of those was the fiery elemental which had made little impact on this trip thus far. I decided this to be the best hiding spot, for even if the stalking alien found me in this place, its advances may be slowed or halted by its own perils with the red-haired being in the room. I found relief in the cool shade of the room, though noticeably warmer than it should have been due to the living flame sitting in the middle of it. I attempted to make small talk with it to calm the voices in my head still whispering after that hateful night prior, but the short-spoken great old one, noticeably still shaken by the events that really days before, would only speak of remorse over the loss of that machine it destroyed. I found the words coming out of my mouth to be appraising. Whether it was my place to support such a creature in any way or not I did not know, but did not feel much danger in such actions. Our conversation was broken as we were found not by the outer god searching for me, but by the tentacled star spawn we had met not long ago. It seems that after leaving the intergalactic corporation that had abandoned the project it had been working on at that dreadful underwater city, the thing had taken up the profession of cooking, opening up a beach stall that sold a local delicacy. We were joined by our whole group, classmates and otherworldly visitors alike, in the small, comfortable restaurant. As the visitors made conversation related to the corporations the Star Spawn and the King in Yellow both represented, I was once again astounded by my classmates' ability to ignore the queer goings-on around them, as the girl with the knack for reporting curiously ignored things so unnatural that were eating on the table masquerading as pets. And though everyone remarked at how good the Star Spawn's cooking was, a tentacle poking out of the octopus-filled dumpling conjured images of creatures I had seen with my own congregating at Relier, and I did not dare to test whether the things were filled with meat that originated on this planet or not. After leaving the restaurant, I attempted to enjoy the beach but was again forced to deal with the aggressive approaches from the silver-haired deity. Drained of energy, I could no longer simply allow the creature to do as it pleased, and I now made the attempt at simply ignoring it. Though this cold-hearted nature was foreign to me, it seemed to have a greater effect than I had anticipated, as the creature seemed to react with some hesitation to my deliberate ignorance of its constant stream of remarks, as if just coming to the realization of the feelings I had toward it, and in a feeble voice, sought pity indirectly asking, how could I reply to this thing with anything but discontent? Though I could not ever understand this thing in full, how were those nightly voices and terrible nightmares anything but warnings to this thing's true nature? Why would it allow me the opportunity to voice my rejection so plainly, when it knew it needed nothing like my consent to fulfill any desire it had? I told it how much I detested its presence. With a short sentence I made plain my rejection. I had to. You understand. Had to? Its reaction to my plain statement was perhaps a bit shocking, for it truly sunk to its knees as if this was the first realization of my uneasiness towards it. And it sat there, pitiable and pathetic, for as long as I would have let it perhaps. It muttered to itself random, unintelligible words as I went out for a swim, joined by my classmate out in the sea I had not allowed myself to enjoy up to this point, but still I could not find much enjoyment as I watched the thing unmoving, not even fending off the usual advances from the living flame itself. I made my way back towards the beach, cursing myself for knowing what I had to do, finding little solace in the supportive words my mother had for me, and sat myself down next to the grieving thing. I could not be happy with myself putting any creature in such a state. Were she human, I think I would not have even permitted myself to say such harsh words. Even though it was not, even though this could merely be an act, I prepared myself to retract my previous statement to it. No, I did not hate it. Surely there were things on this planet I hated more than the visitor. Perhaps I could bear a visit to the local shrine festival with it. Whether that would truly make it happy, whether I would fall for another act, whether it would merely use it as an opportunity for its true intentions, whether it needed such an opportunity, I had no answers to any of these questions, but these were the words I hastily stringed together to make amends for my outburst earlier. They did the trick, as its pale, lifeless face soon brightened up in a huge smile, one that, whether by emotion or by a skillful mask, showed no sign of the evil I had seen earlier that morning. And so I found myself at the street festival, bouncing from stall to stall with the thing guiding me along. Though only slightly less suppressive in its advances, some of my uneasiness seemed to lift since the morning. I couldn't guess why, as I was whisked from one place to another with little time to pause. This was a date, to be sure, and for the first time it felt genuine, without the air of the two of us merely playing roles. From the stalls we went to a cafe, the tourist observation spots, and finally to a local shrine. If at any point I showed any resistance, the pale color that painted it on the beach that afternoon slowly crept up in return, forcing me to obedience time and time again. I could feel this method of control, but could not bring myself to break this chain. We ended up back on the beach as the sun was setting, and before we began to make our way back, the creature, with an air of seriousness, confessed its feelings yet again. And it is then that I picked up on the subtle change since this morning, marked by the lack of its playful antics and mocking air. It displayed a sense of humanity. That is the shortcoming I exhibited, the reason I could do nothing but apologize to that pathetic figure on the beach just hours before. If humanity was my weakness, it would exploit it. And so I caught myself taken aback at its nearest approach, marked by the setting sun and the quiet hum of the beach. This thing was not human, and you must remember, there is no need to fall for such a beautiful sight. This was just one of them, those wretched, eldritch things I had seen at Rila. Just because it looked human was it no less unsettling. I must remember. Why couldn't I remember? To accept its advances was to write my name in blood. And yet I walked, hand in hand with that thing, holding the quill to the book of Azathoth itself. End of chapter.